So here we have an opportunity to look at one of the actual aconite fields, which actually has too small of a yield and therefore wasn't chosen for the harvest this year because we are 5 weeks or so after the summer solstice now. And what normally happens is that the aconite plants that we see here, it's always planted between corn. There seems to be some kind of symbiotic relationship here. Gets cut so that the aconite is never higher than a foot above the ground, so that all of the power of the plant goes into the root. And that's the way how the aconite root will grow very big. So it's a very labor-intensive type of procedure. If you don't do that, then all of the power of the plant goes into the plant shoots up, becomes 2, 3, even 4 feet high, and the power is not as much in the root anymore. We are here at the only aconite producing facility in China that uses traditional methods to process the aconite. The aconite is a legendary herb that we all know as Chinese medicine scholars and physicians and students, but very few of us use because of the toxicity associated with that herb. And I've had the good fortune to be in touch with some of the physicians of the Fuyang Pai, the Support the Young school, that use this herb very often to support people through the process of chronic diseases. And the most important thing in the aconite use, though, is that you use the right kind of foods, and that is traditional growing area. And I'm here with Mr. Zhao and the production manager, who overseeing since several years have gone through the trouble of imitating the traditional production techniques, and they are going to walk us through the entire process and tell us what the difference and the benefits are of traditionally processed foods from Jiangyou.
父子的采收我们已经看不到了，现在已经看不到了。那个在6月底的夏至左右，就全部要采收，在江油的父子全部要采收了。
The characteristic of the harvesting of the aconite is that we get the aconite we take it down from the mountains and plant it in the traditional way in the winter solstice, and then harvest it at the summer solstice. So it's now at the end of July, so we don't see that now, we just see the processing.
这个炮制的工艺呢，采收了以后，先就是简单清洗。清洗是第一次工艺，第一道工艺我们现在也看不到了。那么清洗了以后呢，就马上就是泡在这个碘巴池里面。
The first step is after the root of the aconite gets harvested, it gets washed, and that process already happened as well. And afterwards, immediately, the aconite gets immersed in the brine for 2个星期吧, for 2 weeks. Then the next step, particularly if baifupian are being produced, which is the white kind of aconite, which is already in the Shanghan Nun says is the correct way of processing it, to take the peel off. You boil the aconite to soften up the root so that it's easier for the peeling. So this is a very important part of the traditional way of processing, which is peeling the aconite roots by hand, not with a metal knife, but with a bamboo knife. This is the only company in the area, and that would make it the only company really in all of China, including the Korean and Japanese. They value Shanghan Nun formulas very much, and therefore use a lot of aconite and buy up a lot of the aconite in the area, but they are all using chemicals to get the peel off, because one worker can only, by the very most, process 30 to 40 pounds of peeling roots per day. Whereas if you would use hydrochloric acid, for instance, that would be, you can process several tons a day or so. So that is a very labor-intensive process, and perhaps one of the biggest commitments that their company here has undertaken. And so this is a type of equipment that right after the harvest, the aconite roots get put into, and then the large roots fall off into the basket at the end, whereas the smaller ones come out in another place. In other places is that the traditional growing techniques are not being valued. You have here, which is very labor intensive, you've got people planting at the winter solstice, harvesting at the summer solstice. In other areas, they plant and harvest at the same time because you need to open the ground only once. So you plant and harvest both at the winter solstice. Whereas it's important, of course, for aconite, if you plant at the winter solstice, harvest at the summer solstice, you get only the yang qi from that part of the year when the life energy is building up. You don't have any of the yin energy when the nature's life energy is disappearing again from the life cycle. Yeah, very important for the traditional growing technique is also that no pesticides and no fertilizers, chemical fertilizers are being used.
像切出来以后很光滑，一般的话就用那个机子打的话，
Yeah.
那个一震动，这个地方就一条一条的裂纹了，它那里面的成分它会流失很多。
Yeah.
这样的话，它人工手工切的话，虽然很慢，但是它里面就没有裂纹，没有震口，它的里面的淀粉它可以完全的保留在里面。
A lot of the aconite active ingredients, they are contained in the cells that make up the starch. They actually contain so much starch that during the Cultural Revolution, when there was nothing to eat, and I'm adding that, people would boil this for a long, long time so that there was no more poison left and eat it like potatoes almost, which is probably not such an advisable thing. But if you process the aconite with a machine, then the cells, starch-containing cells, get injured, and you've got lots of rifts in there, and you lose some active ingredients. So they cut the aconite roots here by hand so that the surface of the cut is very smooth and no active ingredients are being lost. Yeah. So this is the steaming station where the aconite roots are being boiled after they've been undergone the brining process before they're getting peeled. This is sort of a cooking steaming station. So over there, this is where the aconite roots, before they cut, they are, but have already been peeled, are soaking again, this time in water. In order to get rid of the brine residue completely, it takes 4 days to completely, continuously add fresh water, flush the uncut and then later the cut roots, and then change the water repeatedly. Otherwise, there will be residual brine still in the product. So what this piece of what Mr. Jiao was just saying is especially important for us Western students of the medicine and being afraid of aconite, because he said there is indeed in China also, and same in the West, plenty of patients who register with side effects, diarrhea, vomiting, fainting, those kinds of problems. And he says, according to the experience of our teacher, Dr. Liu, and other doctors who've been using this in their family lineages for over 100 years, the properly processed aconite does not have any of those type of side effects, but they all the side effects of the brine. Whereas in modern times, the fear of aconite and its so-called side effects actually comes from improperly grown, improperly harvested, and most importantly, improperly processed aconite, and particularly the brine itself can have a toxic effect, and it's not the aconitine residue or so that is potentially left in small amounts in the aconite that we have to fear, but the brine residue. Dr. Pan is saying that in this state, before it has been boiled, the aconite is so toxic that even if you use that small of a piece, you would die from that. It's that toxic. Yeah.
但这个呢也有点因人而异，有时候有一些特殊情况，有的动物它吃一个它也没事，但是有一点吃一点就不行。
那么比如说剥皮的那些人，他整天都在摸，他松过皮肤去，yeah. So in the peeling process, he says that's not a problem as long as you wash your hands or so. You handle those all day long. That's not an issue. But if you would actually eat that, then you'd be in trouble. Yeah. So once the brine has been removed completely, then the aconite pieces are ready to go to the next station. So this is a modern type of equipment that is used to replace the old steaming baskets that traditionally have been used. You would load up baskets of the cut aconite slices and load them up into the steamer, which is a sort of a pressure cooker really, and then close it and program it to, depending on the thickness of the slices, to steam them for a set amount of time.
我们又要生产这个负片，既很安全的使用，就是病人吃了不会有什么不好的这种反应，但是呢又要保证它的疗效。
Very important to us is that even if the aconite is used in very high daily doses, which is in some of the doctors using that go up to 200 grams per day. So we want to make sure that even in those instances it's safe to use, but at the same time we don't want to sell some bunch of worthless starch and want to make sure that when you take it in that some of that young tonic life elixir-like effect is still preserved in the plant. So finding the balance of steaming it enough but not too much.
然后用姜来泡。
This is the most expensive and most valued type of aconite, which is called Jiangyou, and there's very few of them, and that takes 2 months to process one of these. The main product is the white kind of fuzi that is being produced here, and the white kind of fuzi means there's the regular aconite that grows out on the side of the wutao root and is then has the peel removed. If the peel stays on, then that's called 黑腹片, black aconite.